What's up, sports fans? This is the NCAA College Sports Channel. It is time to give you my official takeaways from week number 14, Rivalry weekend of the 2025 college football season. And yes, the regular season is now officially over. This is the final takeaways video, week by week of the regular season. We'll have more takeaways videos, coming out probably during the postseason, maybe also the college football playoff, but this is really just the final takeaways video that we have here for you in week number 14. So, how about Rivalry weekend? Well, it was a great weekend of college football. A lot of big rivalry games took place, and of course, some of those were big on Saturday. And then we had some took place on Friday afternoon and then also into Friday evening. We did see one upset there, which I'll talk about here in just a moment. There was not like a lot of chaos. I mean, there was close to being like really big upsets, but I don't really think it shook up any, the playoff races, in my opinion. But there were some, surprises here and there. But let's go ahead and jump right into these takeaways from week number 14. Starting here with takeaway number 1. And that is, of course, the game. The streak is over. So, yes, the streak is finally over here for the Ohio State Buckeyes against the Michigan Wolverines. We saw Ohio State yesterday beat Michigan 24-9. The biggest game of the regular season. In the final weekend of the regular season, of course. Well, it didn't really turn out to be that way. Ohio State looked like the more dominant team, the more physical team, in my opinion. Yeah, they started off slow. They had the interception from Joey Insane a little bit earlier. They fell like 6-0 behind, but you got to give credit to this Ohio State defense. The way they played on the defensive side of the football, that was the big takeaway there. The defense just dominated, and then really the second half, Ohio State just overall, their offense found something, and Joey Insane made some big plays here and there, and then also Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, they really stepped up. They were, really not maybe 100% going into this game pretty healthy, but they did just enough in order to win this game. So Ohio State, they beat Michigan for the first time since 2019. Yeah, since 2019. If you don't count the COVID game, which they obviously canceled that year, and then also the 4 matchups, it's been 6 years since Ohio State beat Michigan. I don't know when the last time. I think that was actually the last time they beat Michigan in the Big House, and I think that was like the first win that they had in the Big House since 2019 as well. So yeah, the streak is finally over here for Ohio State. They finally can get over the hump and now focus on a chance to win another national championship. They got Indiana coming up in the Big Ten championship game. That is going to be a massive game coming up in Indianapolis. I'll talk about that game in just a moment. For Michigan, their playoff hopes are definitely over. They kind of needed to win this game in order to kind of sit on the bubble in the college football playoff rankings, but it's just not going to happen. And Michigan just definitely, they were not ready for the moment in the second half. I mean, the Buckeyes just overall dominated on both sides of the football. The running game was impressive for the Buckeyes. How about Bo Jackson in this game? The freshman running back, he was amazing. I mean, I just can't get over his performance. And this Ohio State team just gave Michigan, this team, to taste their own medicine by running the football. So yeah, the streak is over here for Ohio State. And that's officially takeaway number 1. So let's now move on to takeaway number 2. So takeaway number 2, I think all these teams automatically are locks for the college football playoff. So we got 6 teams here that are automatic locks. You got Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and Oregon. Now for Ole Miss, there's still a lot of drama there with Lane Kiffin. I'll talk about that story a little bit later on here in this video. So maybe the committee doesn't put a one-loss team in there if Lane Kiffin were to leave. But I just don't think they can do that. I mean, Ole Miss sitting there with 1 loss. This is a really good football team. I think even without Lane Kiffin, they should automatically qualify for the college football playoff. I know Texas A&M got beat by Texas. That was the big upset there on Friday. Yeah, Texas A&M's not playing for an SEC championship, but they still got 1 loss, and I don't think the committee will penalize Texas A&M that much. Notre Dame is automatically a lock. They are sitting there with 2 losses, but, potentially Miami could pass them. I mean, Miami's playing better football as of late. Then you look at Georgia, win or lose in the SEC championship. I think they're automatically going to be in. There's no question about it. They just won't get that first round bye, in my opinion. Oklahoma had to come from behind to beat LSU. That was kind of a tough tough game there for the Sooners, but they automatically qualify in there as a 2-loss team. And then Oregon took care of business against Washington. So, yeah, these 6 teams, I think they're automatically in the college football playoff. It would definitely be a major disappointment if the committee penalizes Ole Miss for Lane Kiffin not coaching, possibly in the college football playoff if he were to leave and stuff. So, yeah, that's definitely a big storyline heading into the weekend. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I think Ole Miss wanted to kind of see what happened in the Iron Bowl last night between Alabama and Auburn. Now, Alabama is not typically locked yet because they had to win the SEC championship, I think, in order to win, get to the college football playoff. That's kind of the same thing with Texas Tech and BYU. I mean, Texas Tech and BYU could both be left out, which does bring me to my next takeaway. So takeaway number 3. And you look at these 3 teams, these 2-loss teams possibly sitting on the bubble in the college football playoff. So I think these are the 3 strong bubble teams here in the college football playoff. You got Miami that's played better football as of late, and you got Vanderbilt that dominated Tennessee on the road. Miami and Vanderbilt got much needed wins on the road, and then same thing with Utah. These 3 teams had very tough, trap road games, on the weekend. Miami and Vanderbilt had the tougher matchups, but it didn't really look like it. They dominated both of their matchups. Miami beat Pittsburgh pretty easily. This Miami team is a very talented team. They look a lot different compared, to who they lost to. And then you look at Vanderbilt. They absolutely obliterated Tennessee in the second half. I think Vanderbilt would beat Utah on a neutral field, just saying, and then same thing with Miami. You look at Utah, though. They had to come from behind to beat Kansas. That was kind of a tough game there for the Utes, but you look at Utah, they probably definitely need a lot of help because I think if BYU and Texas Tech both, when they play in the Big 12 championship, if BYU loses pretty badly, then Utah probably could jump ahead of them, but also Vanderbilt could jump ahead of them because Vanderbilt, is behind Utah in the rankings, which still doesn't make sense. I think you got to put Vanderbilt ahead of Utah just based off of performance-wise, and then, Miami definitely sitting there closer on the bubble because this team has just played better football as of late, and they also beat Notre Dame head-to-head. So does the committee put Miami ahead of Notre Dame this weekend since Notre Dame has not really typically beaten anybody ever since? I mean, they beat Pittsburgh, but, Pittsburgh is now a 4-loss team. So that's definitely a big question that the committee is going to have to answer coming up this weekend. But yeah, you look at Miami, Vanderbilt. I was really impressed with both of these teams over the weekend. Vanderbilt obviously beating Tennessee. They were tied at halftime. You had that roughing the passer, penalty on Tennessee that set up Vanderbilt with a shot to tie the game before going into halftime. Miami, they just completely obliterated Pittsburgh. I was not really expecting this kind of dominant fashion from the Hurricanes, but they did that anyway. So, and then Utah had to come from behind to beat Kansas. That was kind of a tough game there for the Utes, but these 2-loss teams are possibly sitting on the bubble in the college football playoff. A lot of chaos would probably have to happen in conference championship weekend for these 3 teams, these 2-loss, three 2-loss teams, having a chance to make the college football playoff field. All right, takeaway number 4. Speaking of conference championships, conference championship games are set for the Power 4. So in the Big 12 championship, you will have BYU and Texas Tech in a rematch. Then you got Georgia and Alabama in a rematch, and then same thing with Duke and Virginia. So 3 rematches in conference championship games this weekend, and then you got Indiana and Ohio State as the only not rematch here in the conference championship games. That is the one game that I'm looking forward to the most. I'm also looking ahead, I'm also looking forward to, Georgia and Alabama, and then BYU and Texas Tech. Texas Tech is favored by double digits as of right now at 12.5. Ohio State's only favored by 6, and then Georgia's favored against Alabama by half a point. Texas Tech beat BYU pretty easily in the first game, 29-7. Again, Indiana and Ohio State did not play each other during the regular season, but the last time we saw these 2 teams faced off, Ohio State dominated Indiana, but Indiana probably wasn't up to that level of Ohio State's just yet. Maybe they are this time because they beat Oregon back in, October, And then you look at Georgia, Alabama. Alabama has owned Georgia, it seems like, in the past like few years or so. And now you got Georgia with potentially a revenge kind of game here on Alabama. And look, it's hard to beat a team twice in one season. And that's the case here with Duke and Virginia. Now, I'm not a big fan of Duke and Virginia in the ACC championship. I just don't think it makes sense to put a 7-5 Duke team in here. And look, I'm not disrespecting Duke, but I mean, they've had a really easy schedule this year. Same thing with Virginia, but they do got the best conference record. I think really tiebreakers in the ACC and any other conference should really just be based off of strength of schedule, to be honest. I don't think it should come down, to whoever has the best tiebreaker. I think it really does come down to strength of schedule. And Miami, I think, has the toughest schedule out of, Duke and Virginia both. So maybe Miami should be in here to face Virginia in the ACC championship. But now you look at Duke. If they beat Virginia this week, we will have a 5-loss team in the college football playoff, which definitely would kind of, shake things up a little bit. And then Virginia, they would make history by just getting into the college football playoff. But I just don't think an ACC champion is going to get past a first-round game, because if Virginia and Duke, either one of these two teams win, Duke might be the 12th overall seed. And then Virginia, they might be somewhere around number 11 or number 12 or number 10, obviously, because the resumes are just not going to be great here for both of these teams. So, yeah, a 5-loss Duke team in the college football playoff. Can you imagine that? I mean, we'll find out coming up on Saturday at 8 o'clock Eastern time in the ACC championship, and I will be making predictions for these games. I might do like a single video where I do predict all these games, and I'll just give you my honest thoughts about the matchups, and then also who I think will win these conference championship games. But yeah, Texas Tech, BYU, Ohio State, Indiana, Alabama, Georgia. I think those are the three biggest games. I mean, obviously, I think Ohio State and Indiana is probably the game of the weekend. Maybe Texas Tech and BYU come second, but obviously Texas Tech beat BYU pretty easily the first time, and then Georgia and Alabama is probably that second-best championship game. But these conference championship games are going to matter. I mean, you got Group of 5 championship games coming up as well. You got North Texas and Tulane, possibly a matchup that does decide who gets in as the Group of 5 champion. So, yeah, keep an eye on that one, but this is my takeaway here from number 4. Power 4 conference championship games are set. And then the final takeaway, the Lane Kiffin drama continues. So, yeah, this is the final takeaway that I wanted to talk about. It's not really just what's happening on the field. The Lane Kiffin drama continues. You look at the Lane Kiffin drama, I mean, I think there was a rumor out there that he was hired as the head coach of LSU. I didn't even know if that was true or not, because people post something all the time. It came from ESPN, though, and I do believe in ESPN a lot, and they're kind of, really, in a situation where they want to give Lane Kiffin a contract to be their next head coach. So, if I'm an Ole Miss fan, I am not a big fan of this, to be honest. I mean, I'm not an Ole Miss fan. I'm a Kentucky fan. But at the same time, if I was an Ole Miss fan, I would not like this at all. I mean, Lane Kiffin has done so well here at Ole Miss. I don't know why he would leave already, because his team is potentially going to be in the college football playoff. And then also, if he leaves, then there's also a possible rumor that he cannot coach his team in the college football playoff, which is definitely going to be a major issue here for this Ole Miss team. And what if the committee realizes that? What if Lane Kiffin leaves and then, Ole Miss gets penalized out of the college football playoff for that reason? That would not make a lot of sense. I don't know if I see that happening, because, you can't penalize an 11-1 team that's been pretty good this year. So, yeah, this drama just really continues. I don't know if I see Lane Kiffin leaving or not, but I think as of this recording, I don't think there's been a meeting out there. I think there's the meeting was canceled, and then they scheduled it at a later date, and then also in a later afternoon situation. So maybe you see this video now, maybe he is hired as the next head coach at LSU, or maybe he's gonna stay at Ole Miss, but we'll see what happens here. I mean, his team did beat Mississippi State on Friday. You could tell they wanted that game a little bit more, and they kind of just wanted to end Lane Kiffin, maybe his career out with a win. But either way, this drama just continues here for Lane Kiffin, it's really stay or go at this point. Does he stay at Ole Miss or does he go to LSU? I feel like he can just recruit better players at LSU, to be honest, because it could be 5-star after 5-star, and he doesn't have to recruit very much in the transfer portal, but still, the Lane Kiffin drama continues. Give me your thoughts in the comments. Does he stay or does he, go to LSU? Let me know down in the comments below, and those are my official takeaways from week number 14 of Rivalry Weekend of the 2025 college football season. We are heading into Conference Championship Weekend, the final weekend before Selection Sunday. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more on the NCAA College Sports YouTube channel.